This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, this is a general government meeting for Tuesday, October 13th at 6:30 p.m. The formal announcement pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing certain strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of general government is being conducted by remote participation only. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. Despite our best efforts, we're not at this time able to provide for real-time access, and we will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as we're able. Of course, it is also posted with the access code on the town website, so somebody could come over. They haven't yet, but maybe they will. Anyway, item number one is consider and accept GenGov subcommittee minutes of September 29th, which I sent out to everybody, I think, yesterday. Did you all get it? Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Thank you, Mike. You're right. Roll call. Denise?
Here.
Jackie?
Here.
Mike?
Here.
And me. I'm here. Okay. Okay, item number one is consider and accept the subcommittee minutes of September 29th. As I said, I think I sent them all out to everybody the other day.
So moved.
Okay. Is there a second? Any questions or comments or corrections? Anyone?
I don't have anything.
No, good.
Okay. Okay. In that case, then, we have a motion and a second to accept them. All in favor? Denise?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay, thank you. Item number two, discuss the appointment of Len Vigno. I can't even pronounce his name today.
Vino. Yeah.
Vino, thank you. To the Southbridge Airport Commission, effective immediately through June 30th of 2021 to fill a one-year vacancy due to member resignation.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. And you've got his interest form. As I think you mostly know, he was on the commission from 2007 until 2019, stepped off for a while as a flight instructor, commercial pilot. Anything else that anybody else wants to add into that? I know he's been there for a long time, so there's a vacancy. He's welcome. I know Yvonne would be happy to see him back on the board. So,
From my experience, if I may, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I didn't raise my hand for that. I worked with Lenny quite a bit when I was on council, on airport issues. He was always very professional, and he was probably there more than he was at his own job. So they're lucky to have him back. I know he had some conflicts, but apparently some of that is, from my understanding, some of that has been resolved. So he's able to have the time again to commit to the airport. So I think it's a good thing to have him back.
That's good. Anybody else have anything they want to say? No? Okay. Mike, go ahead.
But he was on the Airport Commission in 2019, and his term wouldn't be up until next year. So he stepped down at one point, and then now he wants to come back on. Is that what this is?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. He had resigned from his.
He looks like he's filling up his own term, actually.
Yeah.
No, if I may, yeah. My understanding is that he's right now they had John Trafoni resign, so he's actually replacing John's space.
Oh, okay.
John Trafoni's space. That's what I was just told. I sent a message out asking if he was going to be here.
Oh, okay.
So I got it from Rick that that's the deal. Was that yeah. Oh, yeah, okay. So he had also family. He has a daughter off in Marianapolis, So he had some family, some things have lightened up and changed. So he'd like to finish out this term. I guess we'd see if he's willing to stay longer after that.
Okay, that works. Anybody else have a comment or question? No? Okay. Well, we have a motion and a second on the floor. All those in favor? Denise?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes,
And me, yes. Okay. Item number 3, discuss the transfer request for project number 67900, landfill royalties to project 9105, special appropriation, town manager, landfill legal, in the amount of $150,000 to cover invoices dealing with well water issues at the landfill. And I guess I'll put this through to you, Mr. Manager. Would you care to speak on this? Or?
My understanding, when I spoke to our finance director, Karen Harnois, we put this number through because we got a large bill in August, which was for the preparation of the mediation. And we're anticipating that there will be yet another large bill coming in September, which covered the mediation sessions as well as the trips out to Southbridge for the executive session. So we're anticipating the 2-month total to be a rather large number. And so speaking with Ms. Harnois, that should be an adequate number to address the bills that will be coming in as we're starting to see them and what were proposed by Myrick O'Connell.
Okay. And do we have anything currently sitting in that account? And how much do you project us needing going forward from here?
So I know you had asked at a previous full council meeting about this. My understanding from my time here so far is we've been making the transfers as these have been coming in.
Yes.
I did speak with our attorney McKay today, and it appears that this is beginning to wind down. They're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. So I don't anticipate a large bill like this in future months, but this was unusually large because of those particular mediation sessions and the estimate that was given by Attorney Moskis to Karen Harnois before my arrival. They projected a number about just under half of that for the August bill, and that's my understanding what it came in. So I also believe that there will be some money that comes back from insurance to offset some of this.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions?
hard to ask questions on this. So.
Go ahead, Mike. Yeah,
No,
well,
it's
that's
just,
true.
It's very difficult to ask questions about it, so.
Unfortunately,
Alright.
that's true. Yeah. So does anybody have any comments on this? I mean, we all know that we don't want to be spending this much, but hopefully it'll be done soon. So. Okay. In that case, then, I do need a motion and a second.
So moved.
Okay.
Okay.
And so Jackie moved and Mike seconded. Okay. All those in favor? Denise?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes,
And me, yes. Okay, thank you. Item number 4, continued discussion of the wetland protection bylaw. And so I know Eric is on here. I did send out the stuff that Eric had sent over to me that you guys had requested from the last session of GenGov. I hope you got it. I think I sent it twice actually. Did you get it? Did it help answer any of the questions that you had? I know that I still have not been able to find the minutes for that December 11th meeting. I don't know what happened to them, if they're still buried in the computer somewhere or what. I don't know. But other than that, I think everything else has been sent to somebody.
Mr. Chair?
Jackie?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, Mr. Chair,
Okay.
for Eric.
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate the notes that you sent us. I want a little more detail, though, to the answer you gave about the setback. What was your rationale for choosing the setback numbers as you did? Because you said it was multiple different model bylaws you looked at. So I want to know why was the numbers you chosen and what was the methodology behind it.
Sure. So I'm going to do my very best to answer that. I was not originally employed by the town when those setbacks were chosen. So if you'll bear with me, I'm going to do the best I can. So as far as I can tell, the commission, I'm sorry, they went through several communities and looked at what they used for setbacks, and that was what they chose was those setbacks. That they do echo setbacks in Dudley and several other towns. Just as an example, using Dudley as an example, not as a specific, but so that's the basic gist of why they chose those, was because other communities had done that with some success, and really they're looking out for the environment and for the in a lot of ways for the townspeople.
Right. Thank you, Eric. If I may continue, Mr. Chair, I just have one more comment. I'm having a pretty difficult time around the uncertified vernal pools, just because I have an issue with putting the onerous responsibility on the homeowner to make sure they notice these. Am I interpreting that correct? That the homeowners or the property owner is going to have to make sure they're inspecting the property for vernal pools? Not really. I mean, if the idea is that they need to really understand what a vernal pool is, and they need to understand they need to understand what a vernal pool is and why it's important, and that those areas are important and they shouldn't just be filled in willy-nilly. They should be preserved because they are important habitat. And I get that. I get the vernal pool argument. I'm not arguing the vernal. I'm arguing the point that you said uncertified vernal pools. So if an uncertified vernal pool pops up on someone's property, it's going to be their responsibility to make sure that they're checking their property on a regular basis for vernal pools.
Well, no, if there is a vernal pool on their property, whether it's certified or not, it's going to be there. It's not, they don't grow, it's not like where there's one, then there'll be two or three or four. So no, it's just if they have the one, that they need to be aware of it.
Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Does anyone else have a question? Denise?
Thanks, Jackie. You brought up a couple of points, obviously, that I still have. I did make it a point to get in touch with Eric. So setbacks was also a concern as to, where from, how that was decided. Supposedly there isn't a real good version in Mass General Law or whatever as to what all the setbacks are. So they decided on the setbacks, which are a little concerning. So I was considering on the setbacks, I was concerned mostly there was one in regard to the, what page of setbacks here? It wasn't flipped. To the vegetation not being disturbed within 50 feet. Let's see, so that's on page, it's like second to the last, third to last page. Section 9203.9 is the 203.9B, wetland setbacks. There were a few things, the 50-foot setback of undisturbed natural vegetation. I found that to be beyond. I mean, some people may only have a 50-foot backyard and be bordered by a stream that happens here in Southbridge. And are they not supposed to do anything to the vegetation in their backyard? That just seems wrong. I remember personally when we cleared our land and met with conservation and did everything we had to do, one of the talks, it wasn't about not disturbing the vegetation at all. It was about not uprooting trees, and or if you cut things down, you couldn't stump them or anything. You know, that you had to be mindful of not trying to disturb a lot of the earth around the wetlands. But as far as, you know, undisturbed natural vegetation, that could be weeds, you know, 4 feet high. And if that's your backyard is 50 foot, you know, if your house is happened to be there in some basic time. I mean, I know houses on Field Street are like that. There's a stream behind them. Their backyards are small. How do you, I mean, some of this is just, and the other one I had big issue with is C, 75-foot no build setback to the edge of driveways, roadways, and structures. That just seemed, you know, unless you can define that in some way that I'm not understanding, I thought that just seemed excessive too. So you can't disturb things 75 feet from your I didn't understand that, where that was coming from. Again, you got your 50-foot chemical. Where did these all come from, I guess? You're saying other towns, Eric, had these similar items?
Correct.
Just seems, I don't know, no fertilizer. So if you've got 50 feet of backyard and you abut a stream, you can't ever have green grass in your backyard. I don't understand it, but I'm a little concerned about some of that. And would this activity then be based mostly on the idea of new construction, somebody coming for new construction and you're giving them setbacks, or is this existing so you could come in and enforce on someone's property now? I'm a little confused as to how this works.
Sure.
So
So that would typically, sure, I'm sorry if I can answer your question if you don't mind.
No, please.
So typically that would be for new construction or, you know, for items that would normally require permitting. So if someone's putting in an addition, let's say a swimming pool, potentially a big deck or a patio, you know, things that would require permitting through the commission regardless, you know, those setbacks would probably come into play.
Yeah, as I would understand it, it doesn't necessarily apply if you're like, for example, just mowing your back lawn.
That's correct.
Well, it's pretty clear of undisturbed natural vegetation, Gus. So that's a pretty strong language. So that concerns me in that area of things. And I guess I'd like to know where more than just Dudley. I guess I'd like to know where else it came from. Okay, so moving. So that's an area of concern still.
The section is specifically labeled wetland setbacks for new activities, though.
Okay.
That's what the section is titled. So.
Right. It's, yeah. 75 feet from a proposed driveway is still a long way. But okay, so partaking of that, because if we're trying to get tax base, if we're trying to have people come into our community and build on existing land, which is why the zoning bylaw has some issues. If we're trying to get single family homes or people living in our community, and there's just no way to develop something that's, it's a give and take. It's a give and take. So that would actually go to, I might as well move forward. I've got one thing before that, but since we're talking about new activity and the consequence, it's the, what I want to say, the no net loss. So section 92039. Got the same area, 92039, yeah, right above that there. So replications and requirements. There's, according to Eric's document, it says no net loss. It says normally it's a it's usually a 1-to-1 replication required. And then this one is a 1 to 1.5 replication required. Yet because and it says the commission's requirements are stricter than the 310 CMR. So I had concern about that. I brought that up to Eric when I was talking to him as to why, we would go with something. So yes, we obviously no less than the 1.1 because that is the 310 CMR's, requirement for Massachusetts. But to me, again, it would almost, and I've been told this happens, that there are different circumstances. In this case, I would like to see the words up to 1 to 1.5. That way, it would seem, so say this happened, somebody comes in and then they give them, there's a special circumstance and the commission says, yeah, you don't need to have the 1.5, you're good at 1.1. And then somebody says, well, wait a minute, it says 1.1 in your document. Well, yeah, but we just decided it was okay for this particular project. Somebody could say, yeah, it's political, whatever, who knows. If it was up to, then there's a range. So you could always instill the 1.5, that should be the goal. But ultimately, if you only go to the 1 to 1, I think it's just less, it's an option that's on the table if it can be proved that the 1.1 is enough, but the commission could make them go 1.5, if they so choose. So I was just thinking up to versus a strict 1.5, because we're changing from mass law, which is only a 1.
Right. I can understand that.
It's just a thought. It's like an up to, because we keep being told on this that the commission has the right to waive some things or make it easy, not easier on purpose, but if it makes sense and there's a way to mitigate or make it better, then the commission has that right. But sometimes that can seem political. Commission allows one contractor to do it, but doesn't allow another. So in this case, I'd say up to, that way there's this variance that is up to the commission. If the commission feels the project is 1.1, or it's 1.5, look, we're always shooting for 1.5, but we know there's some wave in there. It's no less. You could put in no less up to, that wording would make me feel a little better on that particular
Well,
item.
as it is right now, Denise, it is a flexible thing, but it says at least 1 to 1.5. 1.5 is the minimum.
Right. Well, that's the problem I have with it.
But it could
Because
go higher.
They're changing the CMR, 310 CMR is 1.1.
I know.
And they're saying minimum is 1.5.
Right.
So
Eric, how was that number selected? And one thing I want to ask, because I know from seeing some of the various trainings because I've done some of the various MAC trainings, there's always been some debate over whether replication even works. So how do you ensure that it actually does?
Correct. It's very difficult. I've seen created wetlands fail. I've seen them work wonderfully. So really what it takes some good monitoring. Typically a 1 to 1.5 is I think that's typically the minimum that most towns do when they have wetlands bylaws, at least from my research, and I would guess from the commission's research. Again, they had most of these written before I started working for the town.
Right.
So the 1.5 to 1 replication ratio is, it's just kind of a general thing. The at least, I think that might be a little excessive personally. And I think that, the idea of up to 1.5, I think the commission could be okay with that. However, I would like to add some additional language in there to say up to, or it's 1.5, could be reduced to as low as 1.1 upon demonstration or space limitations or something along those lines, property restrictions, that kind of a thing. If you've got a 1/4 acre lot and you have to cross a stream or you have to fill a small bit of wetlands, whatever, to put the house in, the replication at 1-to-1 in the backyard, or let's say, or the front yard, 1-to-1 might be all that you're able to do on a lot that size. Versus, like a 6-acre lot, you could probably figure it out where you can do 1.5.
So you would be okay with phrasing it something like 1-to-1 point, let's see, where applicable and appropriate, 1-to-1.5 basis could be reduced to 1-to-1 based on documented property limitations? Something like that?
Yes.
I think he's going to need to take some of the considerations back to the commission at some point and clean it up for what they want without us making the language,
right?
To make sure everything's right. So I have more than just that concern.
Right. I agree with Ms. Clemens that yes, I believe that I would want to bring that back to the commission for further review.
I mean, it's up to them technically what they're putting forward. So
correct.
Okay.
All right. So if a question, fines. Were the fines, how did you come up with the fines? Were they the legal fines that are already listed in 310 SIMR, or were these just numbers that you guys decided on?
They're the fines that are in the general bylaws of the town.
Well, the bylaws,
depending on what, we have fines in the general bylaws for building violations, zoning violations. So we followed those.
Right. Okay.
With the addition of the additional fine for the cubic feet or square feet of fill. That is an added fine. And
okay.
Quite frankly, I think that's a good deterrent for people. Right now, I'm dealing with an enforcement action where there was some filling of a wetland. And if I had this under my belt to use as a tool for compliance, I don't want to fine people. That's not in my nature. However, my nature is to get people to come into compliance, and a lot of times using those tools, such as fining, gets people to come into compliance rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Right, that makes sense. Unfortunately, sometimes that's the only thing that works.
Are other municipalities issuing fines?
Yes, they are.
Just curious. What was the other thing? Okay, so is there something else? No, just the setbacks that Jackie talked about. Okay. But I just want to be clear, because I asked you originally about the setbacks. We'll go back to that. You guys determine the setbacks, right?
Correct.
Based on other communities, but it was your determination. Correct. Okay, it wasn't the same.
It's the commission determination, yes.
It was, okay. Did you get any input from, I know you looked at other towns, I guess, but did they talk to any professional, I don't know, contractors or people or anything in general? Did they get any input from anybody who is impacted by, or who does this type of work, who, would see a problem with or without what this community is intending to do versus, other communities?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know, I'm just curious.
No, they did consult with the DEP circuit rider.
Mm-hmm.
As far as, using them for guidance, and also with MAC, the Massachusetts Association of Conservation Commissions, and the trainings that they offer for this. Now, we've held 2 public hearings on this and advertised them correctly, of course, and had no input from individuals.
Okay. Well, I think the problem we have these days, obviously, is limited. If it's not popping up in front of you on a computer screen, you don't know what's going on. I haven't read a publication like a newspaper scenario. I don't even know when. It's not on the local news. I don't know about it. All right, let's see. Okay, I mean, I still have. I would hope. Could we? They're gonna obviously perhaps look at the wording as Eric has mentioned. on that. So can we wait one more meeting to actually vote on this until everybody's on board with, or whatever? That way there's just, because,
Okay, are you making that as a motion to postpone to the next
yeah, I
meeting?
would make a motion to postpone the action until the next meeting.
Second.
Okay. Before we do, Mr. McCall, would you have anything you'd like to say about this particular issue? You're muted.
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything they want to say? Mike?
Yeah, one more thing, Mr. Chair. If they could come back, if in talking to the commission, Eric, could you find out where they came up with those numbers for the setback, so that way we just know where they got them from?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Mike, you had your hand up?
Yeah, is there some way that we could wrap this up by the next meeting? Because we keep going back and forth. If the counselors, if Mrs. Clemens and Jackie have some suggestions, make your suggestions, and let's make sure that this is done next time. Because the last time you had these questions, and now we're discussing the same things again. Here, if you don't like the setbacks, please make a motion to change the setbacks so that at the next meeting we can vote on this.
That makes sense.
Oh, what, Mr. Chair, one moment.
Go ahead.
No, I'm not criticizing you, Jackie. I'm just saying,
No,
if you have some
I
suggestions, please make
Oh,
them.
Mr. Chair, I have the floor.
Actually, Mike has the floor.
You recognize me though, Mr.
But
Chair.
you're next. Yeah, I will.
I'll use
Mike,
it.
you have the floor.
That's fine. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, Jackie?
To be fair, we're talking about this because it has to go back to the commission anyway. So we're making suggestions to go back to the commission, Councilor Marchetti, not because we're wanting to delay this anymore. This has to go back for their approval anyway before it's back in front of us, because they may disagree with the recommendation you made.
Actually, I'm not sure it has to go back. It's now in our hands. We can send it back to them because we want to get more input from them, but I'm not sure we necessarily have to do it that way. I have no problem with doing it that way if that's what we want. And in fact, Denise and Jackie just moved basically to do that. So do you have, does anybody, and Denise had just had her hand up, and I was just going to ask Denise anyway, do you have any specific recommendations you'd like to see these setbacks be?
So let me just, with respect to Councilor Marchetti, bylaws changes, implementation that were going to be set for this community for the foreseeable future should not be rushed. We saw it in December, heard nothing more about it until last week. And I asked to postpone it further, but realizing you cannot postpone past the next, to a specific date. We could have set a date, November 10th, if we wanted or something, but we didn't. So we just gave it to the next meeting. It's been 1 week. We had a bit of information from Eric, which was good, but not, I was expecting it perhaps within the document of being able to compare easier than what it had to be. And there were questions that we're now together discussing. That's how things move along. Sometimes the processes take a while and other times they're much quicker. But in this case, we're about to set, council potentially will read our recommendation and chances are they will move forward on it. I want to vote on something that I can be really sure for this community that it's going forward is something that's, you're not going to suddenly in a month say, geez, where did that, we should change it. And then it's got to go through 3 readings again and change it. I don't think that's effective. Unfortunately, it takes time to do these things. And that's what any committee, subcommittee is about, working through this. And we're working with, it's not just us, it's another commission. So it's a double whammy. They have to have a meeting. They have to talk about things, propose some more stuff maybe. I'm sure Eric will take back our concerns. Perhaps some are watching, maybe Maureen's watching, whatever. From committee members might be watching and saying, boy, they're crazy, or we're not going to change a thing. That's maybe so. And then perhaps we would say, well, we will send it with a negative recommendation if something isn't, if we don't really like it. That'll be the subcommittee's voice. But council will then do again what they'll want to do at that point. But this is the working area. Sorry it takes so long. I think we're doing our due diligence, and if we had from December to now with the information, it would have been much easier than 1 week of a lot of reading and going back and forth with stuff. So at least for me personally. So that's just my opinion, and thank you. If we do have a motion in a second. I'm hoping we will postpone this till the next meeting and hopefully have enough answers or enough concerns or comments to move forward. That's all I got to offer on that.
Eric, when is the next Concom meeting?
Let me just pull up my calendar really quick.
Here right now, by the way. Otherwise, she probably on this.
The next meeting is the 22nd.
22nd. Okay. So then do we want to do, Denise, then do you want to do this to postpone this to the first meeting after the Concom's 22nd meeting?
So
I mean, we probably won't have one before then anyway, but you never know. I don't know what's coming down the pike in the next week or two, so.
There's a lot of holiday visions. There's a lot of holiday visions coming.
Well, that's true.
And there, check Southbridge Holiday Visions Facebook for your times that you might want to come and help us.
I have no problem doing that.
I'm sending out an email tonight.
Okay. But anyway, so
yeah,
would you?
That's fine. Then I think the next meeting, if it's after Concom's meeting, I mean, could we get an email about Concom's, a reminder? Maybe, I'll tune in and like maybe somebody else, maybe Jackie, we could tune in. We could ask some questions.
That's a good idea. Eric, would you mind setting?
I don't know.
Do you already have the login data information for that next meeting, Eric?
I do, yes.
Do you mind sending it to us?
Well, if you could just send it to the
absolutely.
subcommittee
Thanks.
or the whole council.
Absolutely.
Heck, I'd send it to the whole council. They're the ones who are gonna have to vote on this. They should know what they're dealing with.
Well, this is
A lot of
true.
them are here. I see Joe here and John. That's about it.
Okay, so we do have a motion in a second. Does anybody else want to chime in before we vote? Joe, John, Dave, anybody? Okay, so there is a motion in a second to postpone to the next Gen Gov meeting. All those in favor? Denise?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yeah.
Mike?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay. Let's see. Item number 5, discuss process of council confirmation for appointments to boards and committees. I drafted something about that last night. I think I sent it out by email to everybody. Did you get it?
I received it, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Did everybody get it? Because I sent it. I think I sent it out to everybody. Anybody have comments or questions? Or I mean, obviously we're just a draft idea, so however we want to change it is up to you guys. I purposely broke it up into 2 pieces. One is the appointments of councilors to boards and committees. I was thinking in terms of things like the RTA board and the regional planning boards and those kinds of things. And the other one was specifically vetting reappointments to boards and commissions that more or less the town manager appoints and makes recommendations for.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to throw in everything I could think of, but I'm sure I missed something. So if anybody has ideas or suggestions, by all means, let me know.
If I might,
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair. Thanks. So yes, it did come out like yesterday or whatever. So Prince, I made a few comments. I think this is something that will happen, that will move forward, let people write something up and have it a little bit longer. First off, just on the first part of the appointments of councilors to boards and commissions, you've got that now the town manager usually knows about these things, and then as he's been recommending or whatever is my understanding. I still think that it's the town managers notify all of council. I don't necessarily feel that it's the town manager tells the chair and then the chair tells the council. I think the town manager just puts a blanket email out to councilors. These are what's available. I probably have some other thought, just saying, that's just one thought. I got to look closer at that one. On the second one, on the Rule 24, the vetting of reappointments to boards and commissions, I have a little problem with that one because, again, 431 of charter, it's the manager who, I realize you want interaction and information, which is what we get, but the way this is written, it's not correct. Because the manager has a number in 431 of the charter, has a number of boards and commissions that he specifically, or she, the TM would specifically appoint. So they would go, that person would go through he would go through the process of bringing forward candidates by virtue of the process we have. People call up, hey, I want to be on something. They fill out a form.
Mhm.
The manager interviews them and then puts forward names to come to council. The council cannot micromanage and turn what the manager has as on the commission side to political to what the council. Now the council has the right to confirm, absolutely.
Mhm.
And they have the process. It comes through usually Gen Gov or some whatever, and there's a process. But you can't just suddenly say whenever there's any of this is about to expire that the person that they're going to notify council in sufficient time for council to review the person's performance and all. Sorry, that's not, charter says it's the town manager's appointment. Town manager vets the candidates that come in and presents to the council the candidate or candidate. Maybe the manager would want to say, these were the apps we had, this is the one I picked. But you can't mandate the manager to do what's not. I mean, you need to look at this a little closer on that level and get more input from everybody else. Obviously, I was just reviewing it from, what I read in charter, but also what I've known in the past. So I could see that the TM says we had 5. This is the one that I felt was the strongest candidate. This is the one I'm putting forward. You could say no, and then I guess the TM goes back to drawing board and picks number 4, number 3, or whichever candidate he chooses at that point. But it is still, in many cases, the town manager's appointment on a lot of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I know you've been around, but I'm just saying. So the way this is worded, it's not clear. There's ones that council are officially on that are important to the council, or they're all important, but you know what I mean. And then there's ones that aren't. So I think that has to just be. It has to be tweaked in some things, and I personally just didn't have time myself to write exactly what I'd like to or suggest it to say.
Okay.
So I need more
Well, if you
time
want to
personally
submit
to
that,
delve into this document. I did not.
Jot down what your ideas are and send them over.
Okay.
Okay. Jackie?
Mr. Chair. Yes, thank you. I have with Denise. I guess we're on the same wavelength. I had the same issue with the Rule 23 about going to the council chair. And yeah, 24 is very confusing. And I would want more time to review 24 at least. 23 seems fine to me, but if the subcommittee wants to wait till the next meeting to finalize it, that's fine.
Okay, and that's totally understandable since I did literally draft it last night, partially because that's when I got the Gen Gov minutes, and so I was kind of basing it off the minutes that I was working from and some of the other ideas that I had while I was writing it. So actually, Mr. McCall, I don't know if you had a chance to read it. I think I did include you on the email. Do you have any comments or concerns or observations about the way these things are drafted, and any thoughts on them?
Well, no, I listened, I appreciate your input and as well as Ms. Clemens and everybody else's. As Ms. Clemens pointed out, the charter does provide the authority to the manager for certain appointments, but I do think it's incumbent upon who's ever sitting in the position to do some of that due diligence when they're making those appointments. So whether it's in the rule or not, I think whoever occupies the seat as the manager should be reaching out to the various chairs of the boards to see who's on there, how they're performing, and notifying people when those positions are up, and looking to recruit new people. So I think it's part of the position as the manager to be doing that. And those are just my thoughts at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else have any comments or questions at the moment? John, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I also agree with former Councilor Clemens regarding Rule 24. I think that it kind of steps on the toes of the town manager and what's required in the charter. I I think you'd have to sit down and look at this side by side with the charter and make a firm, determination as to whether or not we're crossing over into an area that we shouldn't be going into. As far as Rule 23 goes, whoever's notified, as long as everyone gets notified, I'm fine with. But 24, I just, when I was looking it over, kind of made me sit back and think for a second and wonder just, where this is going exactly. I think Town Manager McCall is correct that a person in the manager's position should be doing the due diligence necessary to make a proper appointment. And of course, the council always has the right to stay up or down. But I think the town manager, it's incumbent on the town manager to do the due diligence to make a good appointment to begin with. Thank you, that's all.
And I totally agree with that. I was kind of throwing some ideas out there based on some of the conversations we've had in the past about people's concerns and so forth. And they don't necessarily reflect what Mr. McCall has done by any means. And I was just trying to throw some ideas in here. I think it's more, for me, it's more, I would love to see like some sort of an overview of what the people that we are potentially reappointing, what they have done on the boards that they're on, and whether they participated in the available educational opportunities and those kinds of things. So we'll have some idea rather than just having a name on a chart that says, just their name and that they've been on this board for 10 years and they just want to be reappointed again. That doesn't say much. I mean, granted, in a lot of cases they are perfectly good, and I would have no problem with reappointing them anyway. It would be nice to know a little bit to encourage, and I think it would also help to encourage them to get more involved in things. But I have no problem with what you're saying. Absolutely, I totally agree with that. That I don't want it to be an issue of creating a conflict between a charter conflict between the council and the manager. I totally understand that. I don't want to do that. I'm just trying to see if we can figure out a good way to get some more information of the people that we're possibly reappointing. That's all.
Mm-hmm. If I may, then I think in the past, a lot of what has happened, as you say, is usually the reappointments would come up and just kind of show up. Exactly. And that's just not, so the list, I know there's a list kept. I know that the secretary, the administrative assistant keeps this, and then brings up the names, and now, actually calls usually the chair of the committee and says, hey, how's this person been working out? But I think just I think that what you're trying to really do as a council perhaps is to let the town manager know your preference is to make sure when that reappointment, it's coming to its proper committee prior to it coming to council, so that you have those few minutes to look back over the person's piece of paper and say, Mr. Town Manager, did you check into this? It's your appointment. So even if it's a reappointment, it's still his reappointment. You would hope that he would have done his due diligence, especially being new. Now he's going to want to know who he's putting on committees. Right. So I think that the biggest problem has been those type of things, the long-term, a lot of times quasi-judicial type committees and commissions, and things that are long, So certainly you want to make sure that, like you said, Gus, maybe not a full report, but as long as the manager feels he's actually asked somebody something or re-interviewed the person and asked somebody, who knows? But that's the process of the timing, which is always the spring. So there's a lot to get done between budgets and that. But heck, to see a 50 agenda item because 30 of them are reappointments that nobody even knows if they've shown to a meeting.
Exactly.
That's what you're trying to fix. I get that. Exactly. And I think that's what this is complicated, and it doesn't need to be. It can be a short, sweet kind of the process is the person is asked, he's re-interviewed, it comes to a committee meeting that, for whichever committee that is, and it goes forward. It's like, it should be simple steps, very simple steps. And I think you'd be okay. I mean, it's very simple steps. So.
Okay. I have no problem with that. Okay. Anybody else have any comments or questions or what are we doing at this point? Somebody mentioned earlier about the idea of putting this on hold to redraft and get more input and then do something with it at the next Gen Gov, but we don't have a formal motion to do anything at the moment.
Also, and let the TM have time to think about it too, because half of what you're talking about is his, or more than half is his stuff. So he can think about what would make easy, not just easy, but the process. Is the process going to be convenient for everybody, work for everybody, you know, or improper, whatever. So he can think about that too, in his opinion. So I'll make a motion to postpone to the next Gen Gov meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Denise?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And me, yes. Okay. Okay, item number 6 is new business. Is there any? Anybody have anything? Mike, go ahead.
I just wanted to, I don't know if this subcommittee wants to take this up or not, but I know that last week the Board of Health took up the issue of trick-or-treating on Halloween.
Right, okay.
And I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. I don't really know what they did, to tell you the truth. I came to the meeting late because I was at another subcommittee, another committee meeting. And I don't know, did they vote against it? Did they vote in favor of it?
I can tell you I was there. What they ended up doing was they decided they're going to let trick-or-treating go as it normally has. They're not going to be doing the Horribles parade, and they're gonna try to basically have it so that as limited to the 2 hours that they would normally limit to, as I think Beth had mentioned. She doesn't want to see the cops out there encouraging people to go home at 10 o'clock at night. They're going to be trying to do something about limit, and we're kind of vague on it, about trying to ensure that neighborhoods don't get too crowded. They're trying to encourage people to stay in their own neighborhoods for trick-or-treating, but there wasn't anything really specific about how they would go about doing that. Your best bet, honestly, would probably to call Andy on that. It's not really a council bylaw thing. That's more of a Board of Health issue.
If I could continue?
Jackie?
I was just going to say, I have an email from Mr. Pelletier because I asked him about that this morning, if you would want me to read it so Mike knows.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
He wrote to me, the Board of Health approved trick-or-treat with a strong encouragement for social distancing, mask, and respect for those who choose not to participate by turning off their lights.
Right,
the decision was based on the concern that if canceled, citizens would opt for more detrimental practices such as group parties.
Right.
The Board of Health offered no recommendation on the hours of trick-or-treating, deferring that decision to the Southbridge Police. Ms. Marissa of my office has posted some guidance on the webpage as well and offered it to the police for posting on their Facebook page and gave it to Dave Adams to post on to focus on Southbridge. I have included Marissa so she can recheck and confirm these postings. And that was the email.
Okay, thank you. Were you going to say something else, Mike? Sorry, I think I cut you off.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, you both said it, there was no action taken. Did they vote on it? Did they not vote on it? They just decided to let it go on. What does that mean? Yeah. They decided to let it go on. Did they take a vote on it? If you look at the CDC guidelines, trick-or-treating, door-to-door trick-or-treating is considered a high-risk activity this year for the spread of COVID-19. So it's one thing to say, well, residents are going to do it anyway. Okay, well, that's on the residents. But if the town sanctions this, then the liability is on the town. Again, I don't know if the town council wants to take this up or not, whether it's in our purview or not. I don't see why we can't decide something like this, but I just thought I would bring it up for conversation. Thank you.
It's an interesting point. I know Councilor Dow was on that meeting too. Did you have anything you'd want to add to that, Joe?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for you. Councilor Marquardt, the reason why we support trick-or-treat, like Councilor Steve said, they're going to end up doing a private party, and actually the 6 feet distance and the mask they have, outside doors, and they're not actually a big group of people. And we recommend to be at the school, at different places, to be given update for the kids, to be able to be safe way. I mean, you can't take everything away from the kids, and I don't think, like I understand where you come from regarding the safety and the risk. But outside walking, if we're not gonna allow it, they're gonna go to different town. They're gonna still get in high risk bringing the coronavirus to our town. At least we know what's going on in our home, and I think we can work to protect it. But when they go out, it's hard for us to keep it limited after that regarding the cases and the coronavirus. That's why we decide, we recommend to have it, let the kids have fun, go get the candy. The parents have a responsibility to teach the kids. We recommend to be at the school too, to teach the kids how the, walking, distance, safety. At the end of the day, we have to face it soon or later. We can't just keep hiding and say coronavirus and not doing anything. I mean, our body have to get used to the immune system against the coronavirus, I believe. We can't just keep hiding, like how I say, they have to, we have to freeze somehow. I mean, if they can't do the Halloween, what are they gonna do? Nothing. Keep them home, remote, and under the day, what's gonna happen? On this is limits on the phone, on the computer, I mean, we gotta let them out. You can't. It's outside. It's not inside, and it's up to the parents to send the kids or not. I think it's a good idea. Let the kids go out, and I don't see high risk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Denise, you have something?
Yeah, so right now, just so you know, it is posted on the police department's website, on their Facebook, I guess, because I just did the Google search for Southbridge trick or treat, and it is finally posted, and it's quite extensive in what they've said. As of 10/13 at 3:50, subject to changes due to COVID, so it's subject to changes. But right now, as it goes, Halloween 2020 will look a little different. It's going to be Saturday, 5:30 to 7. Even though the safest way to celebrate Halloween during a pandemic is stay home, we also know it's an important event for many families. Trick-or-treaters are urged to stay home if they feel sick. If you do decide to head out, remember to remain 6 feet apart, not with people from people not in your household. Wear masks that cover your mouth and nose. Use hand sanitizer frequently and wash your hands as soon as you get home. We encourage residents who will be handing out candy to children to wear a face covering. And then after discussion, the Herbals Parade has been canceled and there are no trunk or treat events this year to prevent people from gathering in close proximity to each other. Please follow the advice of the Board of Health and the advice of the CDC. So that is posted on the Facebook page for the police. So finally I can answer the question to everybody, what's the time? And the time is 5:30 to 7, because I've been asked that a lot. But I've also been asked, oh, they're having trick or treat, then I'm not going to go to Charlton. As to Dow's point, I'm not going to, I've had some even family members make a comment they were going to go to people's places where their friends lived in their neighborhoods. And I've heard them say now, oh, I guess we're just going to stay local because it's on, and they'll stay in their own neighborhood. So it's a good point Mr. Dow made, but again, lights out. If you don't want to hand out candy or be part of it, don't do it. If you're, I think everyone has to take a responsibility to themselves. There comes a time when you just have to, like he said, be safe, do whatever, but you got to live. And my concern would be that kids are going to go out anyway, not so much parties, but they're going to end up out there just because they're going to just want to, and they're going to congregate more because instead of house to house, they're going to just congregate, not as a party, even just as more mischief, I think, if you're not actually setting a time and a limitation. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm also going to point out that something that the Board of Health did mention is that they're also encouraging people who are giving out candy to not actually do it hand to hand, to actually like have a bucket or something on their front doorstep, so that, and they just refill it every once in a while rather than actually passing it out directly. I didn't hear you mention that from the police department's posting.
They didn't say that. They just said, use a mask, wear a mask. And but it's funny. I noticed that like last month, CVS had these new things that were like, take a candy. I guess it talked to you when you put your hand in, and it was to take your own candy. I thought, oh, they're getting ready for COVID. There's a market for everything, including COVID Halloween.
Okay. So does Mr. McCall, did you have something you wanted to say? No, okay.
No, Mr. Chairman, just listening to the comments.
Okay. Do you have any concerns or thoughts about this particular issue?
You know, I understand Councilor Marquette's concern, but I have had the conversation with Andy Pelletier. I asked him about it after it came up at the last full council meeting. And I do see other communities taking a similar position that, you know, they're allowing it to continue for the very reason that was highlighted by the Board of Health. The concern is that there will be indoor gatherings of large numbers of people, and you see how that translates into a lot of school closures because you're going to have a lot of school-age children. And now it seems if, you know, 1 or 2 kids get COVID-19 or exposed, they have to then curtail any hybrid or in-person learning, so everybody goes remote. So, you know, I understand that, you know, it's probably not advisable to have people going out door to door, but I think the alternatives could be much more detrimental to the community, especially within the elementary schools and middle schools. If someone to get exposed during a private party and then bring it back, they'd have to shut down the remote learning. I mean, go to remote learning. So that's my only thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. Also, just for your information, I pulled up the DPH's website, and we are still a red community as of today's the 7th, I guess it is. But
Yeah,
they literally left it a little out of date because it's the 7th that they had listed. So
yeah, Mr. Chairman, I believe they update it every Thursday.
okay.
So that those are only weekly updates to those maps.
And I know when the Board of Health was talking about it, they say that when they go, if we get 3 weeks, they'll have to start talking about the idea of whether or not to send schools back to full remote. And obviously, Halloween would come, I think, would be coming in before the 3rd week of that cycle. If no, so it's kind of a gray area at the moment, just for everyone.
Councilor Adams has noted that it updates those maps on Wednesday. I think the Executive Office of Health and Human Services said that it can update on Wednesday, but in reality, I think most people probably don't see it till the news cycle on Thursday morning.
Thanks.
Mr. Chair, I don't get it. If the schools aren't having the issue, why would they change that? You know, even if you've got some, you know, few extras in the community, it could be anybody. If the schools themselves aren't having issues, why in the world would they pull the plug? That just makes no sense.
I don't know if they're going to. I mean,
they're getting fed, they're getting the services they need. That's nuts. You'd be putting those children back into prison practically, you know?
I just wanted to point out that when they brought it up at the last Board of Health meeting, they did point out that there were no reported cases associated with the schools yet. There's a couple of kids that there are a couple of students that have cases, but they're not actually in the schools right now. So it's kind of a gray area. What will happen? It's just a potential that if there become issues, if there become a lot of cases in the community that might have a risk for the schools, the Board of Health was pointing out that they do technically have the legal authority to do it. They may not want to. They may not do it. They don't particularly want to do it. But if something were to happen, they could do it. That's what they were bringing it up. I just thought I'd mention it. That's all. Hopefully, it doesn't happen at all. Okay. Anyway, does anybody else have any comments or questions on this issue? Councilor Dow?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to you. Again, regarding the trick-or-treat, they should let them do it and organize. They say it from 5:30 to 7. At least the police out there, the parents aware what's going on. Like how I say to Mr. Pelletier at that time, they can educate the kid at the school how they're gonna be clean out there, be safe. They have enough time to, you know, education, and the parents have a responsibility. And if they're not gonna allow them, they're still gonna do them. You can't stop them. You know, like they're not gonna sit home. You know, regarding if you say no or yes. I think we should allow him an organized thing and make it safe for him by letting him doing it certain time. Educate him and educate the parents on focus on Southbridge, on the town website and all that. But then say no, because you don't want to take any risk or anywhere. Like how I say at the end, if thing is gonna happen, you can't avoid it, regarding if they go trick or treat or not. They can catch it from like different town. They can catch it in different way, and they're gonna. I heard it. You know, a lot of people say if the town is not gonna allow it, we're gonna go on our own. We're gonna have a private party. We're gonna do different things. They're gonna enjoy the Halloween. So I advise the town to allow these residents and the kid have fun in a respectable way and follow the rule. And our job to protect them much as we can, and their parents too. And again, it is what it is. How long you gonna keep hiding and avoiding the issue out there? You know, obviously is no shot for that. So we're still all in risk, regarding if we go Halloween or not. The kids going to school still in risk. You go to store in risk. You go, doesn't matter where you're going. So I think let them face it. Let them go out there, and then we deal with it if happen. I mean, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Are there any other new business items? Anyone? Going once? Going twice? Denise?
No, I don't think
Setting
so.
it?
Just,
Okay.
no. Just,
Okay. In that case, then I will take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
second.
Denise seconds. Okay. All those in favor? Denise?
Yes.
Jackie?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
And me? Yes. Thank you all for coming. Have a great
Thank
night,
you.
and we'll see you
Yep.
whenever.
Take care.